Welcome to Cybersecurity Awareness TV, episode number 454, recorded March 30th, 2024. Join me, Professor Mac Jackson Jr., as we navigate through the digital landscape, gearing up for a thrilling ride and exciting information that you can use to protect yourself, your family, your business from the fastest growing crimes of the 21st century. You can find out more about my company by going to MacJacksonJr.com for more information. And folks, remember to share, like, and subscribe to this show. In our episode this week, we are going to discuss cybersecurity and the things that are going on in our country and around the world. And folks, there's another one we're talking about this week about the nation's water infrastructure, how it is under attack, folks. In our second segment, we'll talk about FBI scams, and this is regarding to the healthcare industry, how they are under attack with the latest scams that affected them as well. Folks, definitely stay tuned. We'll be right back for Cybersecurity Awareness TV after these messages. Hi, folks. This is Mac Jackson Jr. from Cybersecurity Awareness TV. I'm here to tell you today about Dr. Aki Hakimi from Vegas Direct Primary Care. As healthcare costs are on the rise, Dr. Hakimi takes the time to explain and recommends lifestyle changes to improve your health and your well-being. She is very attentive and knowledgeable, and she listens, folks, to what your needs are and help you get to the health care that you deserve. Dr. Kimi would suggest things like food is the best medicine. That's what she says. I want to give praises out to her and thank her for her support here with me as well as the Las Vegas community. Thank you, Dr. Kimi. Folks, our first story is a follow-up on cyber attacks on our nation's infrastructure and public utilities, such as water and power plants. In recent incidents, cyber criminals have targeted our nation's water infrastructure around the U.S. and led to a notable response by government at all levels. The White House has issued a stern advisory for state governors, emphasizing the urgent need to bolster cybersecurity defenses to safeguard these essential systems. Yes, folks, the hackers are coming after our infrastructure. The breaches in our water facilities has been primarily facilitated by the exploiting fundamental security loopholes, like guessing passwords. We've talked about in the show before, like social engineering. Again, these things underscores the robust importance of having cybersecurity practices within organizations. However, folks, with all this done, companies are slow to acquire these particular types of procedures and processes to protect their business. To emphasize this, we have a story to share with you coming to us from NBC.
The Biden administration is warning states to be vigilant against cyber attacks targeting the country's water systems, citing ongoing threats from the hackers who are associated with the governments of Iran and China. Joining us right now is Adam Isles. He's the head of cybersecurity practice at the Chertoff Group. Adam, when I read about this warning coming from the Biden administration, my first thought was, what? Why don't we know more about this? What as consumers do we need to worry about? How would we know if there was an attack coming? Does it mean you need to worry about your tap water?
Well, look, let's talk about why we care about this. I mean, water is the most lifeline critical infrastructure sectors, and we think about this for three reasons, right? We worry about an interruption of availability. That can happen. It can happen in natural disasters, et cetera. What we're worried about is a precisely timed attack that would interrupt the availability of it, in the context of some conflict. There's also a psychological impact, that you really led with. Where some of these attacks could occur really to foment fear, uncertainty into the communities.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people have seen Leave the World Behind. It's the Julia Roberts film on Netflix, I guess, that lays out some of these concerns if a lot of these systems were attacked, our critical infrastructure systems, and we didn't know that and we lost communications type of things. How big of a risk is this? How likely of a risk is this? And what are the government and companies doing to make sure that this is not something that is carried out?
Well, we've been worried about attempts certainly in other parts of the world, to compromise water infrastructure for some period of time. I mean, we've seen, going back over a decade, actually, Iran, focused on water systems, not just in Israel, but we've seen probing of dam infrastructure in the United States. More recently, we've seen, in Israel, attacks on water infrastructure. We've seen in Ukraine, there's reporting that says, that the water infrastructure is the fourth most sector that's attacked by Russia and Ukraine, ahead of the State Security Service and the Border Service. And we've seen, to your point, recent reporting around strategic access, if you will, into water systems in the United States.
So, Adam, I guess my point is, how vulnerable are these systems? Are we doing enough to protect ourselves?
We need to do more. I mean, they're widely dispersed. We have 50,000 water systems in the United States, and they tend to be amongst the least mature of critical infrastructure sectors. The energy sector, financial services sector has had either regulation or self-regulation in place and funding to go along with it. And I think we need clear measures. We need more funding, and more funding is coming to enable the water sector to better defend itself.
The idea of an attack would be what? That the water would be shut off? Or when you mention potential attacks on dams, that the water would be turned on in a big way?
Well, I think so. There are a couple of scenarios, right? These water systems depend on pumps, and pumps move the water. They also deploy disinfectant into the water to keep it clean. They move wastewater. And so we're worried both about pumps being turned off, and we're worried about pumps being turned on, either to move more water than should be moved, or to deploy more chemicals that should be deployed. We also worry about the management consoles that control all this stuff. And even if the pumps themselves aren't impacted, if the engineer workstations, the human-machine interfaces are turned into bricks, essentially, then you have a loss of control as well.
And folks, these stories underscores the imperative nature that all cities, municipalities must have proper cybersecurity procedures and protocols in place to mitigate these risks and to ensure the resilience of our water and other infrastructures around our country. Again, folks, here's another story I want to share with you, coming to us from CBS Detroit.
The White House is warning governors across the country to beef up their cybersecurity after hackers recently attacked several cities' water systems. Joining me tonight is Roger Kohler, Chief Information Security Officer at Huntress. Roger, thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So, hacking incidents at water facilities, how vulnerable are they, and what is the concern here? Is it about the drinking water itself?
Yeah, absolutely. There's Department of Homeland Security actually stood up a agency, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, many years ago to kind of go after some of these things with the critical infrastructure. And water is one of those things that they've really kind of looked at. And as you know, in Detroit, there's a lot of issues in 2014 with billing and all sorts of issues. And so this is really where a lot of these systems have bridged their information technology networks with their operational technology. Think like billing with how you control it, so you can measure and bill those things. And that's really opened up a lot of vulnerabilities where they're really concerned about right now.
In some of those recent hacking incidents, what happened there? Was the water contaminated, or what kinds of attacks exactly were they?
Yeah, at this point, there's been no damage, anything that's been really critical, but these are very simple attacks that have occurred. Like if you go look at the announcement that DHS did put out, some of these things just within the last couple of years have been about advanced Chinese-backed hackers, as well as Iranian hackers that have done things as simple as using basic passwords. Because some of these places, just like what we see at Huntress when we target, when we look at our SMB market, small and medium-sized companies, they're under-resourced. And so that's where we're trying to help them out with basic security and advanced security on some of these places.
Yeah, so the White House says many cities don't even have those basic measures in place at their water facilities. So what does that look like? Is that just having appropriate kinds of passwords? And you mentioned advanced as well. What is the scale from basic to advanced?
Yeah, some of these attacks have been very basic. Just think passwords like 1111. Something as simple as that have been getting in. So DHS, CISA, and others are asking people to just do some basic hygiene, but it becomes very difficult when a lot of these places are under-resourced and they don't have the expertise in there. And so there's tons of free resources that DHS-CISA has put out. We put out a lot of blogs at Huntress to kind of talk about some of these security things that these companies can do and really kind of get after some of these problems.
Yeah, I imagine when we're talking about water facilities and systems across the country, there's a lot of red tape. I'm sure everyone kind of handles this differently. Do you think that they're receptive? Has there been a positive reaction to some of these warnings from the White House? Is it easy to get everyone on board?
Yeah, I think the surprising thing is a lot of these places don't have the resources. And so when a lot of these announcements come out, they need resources for funding. They need people. I was watching a Energy and Commerce Committee a few weeks ago talking about how the average age for water operators are 57 years old. And so think about how we've evolved in computers and IT and how a 57-year-old is looking at these things. And so when you talk about those, how do you do some of those basic passwords, enabling multi-factor authentication, patching, those can be very difficult without resources to go with it.
Yeah, and when you say resources, I assume you're talking about funding. Can you describe how much these improvements would cost for, I don't know, a mid-sized city?
Yeah, some of them can be very expensive if they try to do it internally. And so that's where they do need manpower. They need funding to purchase these things. Again, this is where we've seen Huntress, we go after the small, medium-sized companies. And it's been really not just unique to water or manufacturing or any other critical infrastructure. It's really across the board when we look at the SMB market. And so that's why Huntress really looked at this space is, hey, how do companies outside the Fortune 500 or the Fortune 1000 really get after some of these problems?
Yeah, it seems like every other day we're hearing about websites or companies being hacked. Do you think that there's enough awareness about cybersecurity vulnerabilities when it comes to public utilities like this?
Yeah, there really isn't, because a lot of people think, when they think of public utilities, they think of big energy companies. They think of people that have a lot of money and putting a lot of money back into their security. And a lot of times it's municipalities, it's small companies that are really running these things. And so they're really vulnerable to these things. And so there's not a lot of awareness to this. DHS-CISA has tried to put out some shields up and some other campaigns to try to drive awareness. And it's something that definitely needs more looking into for sure.
Yeah, deeply concerning. Roger Kohler, Chief Information Security Officer at Huntress. Thanks for joining us today and helping to build that awareness.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
These stories, folks, underscore the value of cybersecurity awareness and the importance that all companies, including our infrastructure with our water systems and power grid systems, must have practices and procedures in place. Now, I'm not saying that they don't. They do have them in place, but we need to have them supported. We need to support them with state and local collaborations with government and businesses to make sure that we have the best people, the best procedures on a team to protect our infrastructures from these types of cyber attacks. Like we've always said in the show, folks, hackers and cyber criminals are always looking for ways to penetrate our forces, our defenses, and acquire information to be resold in the dark net. We must remember, folks, stay vigilant, #stay cyberwoke. We'll be right back after these messages.
Introducing CS Now Staffing, led by yours truly, Laura Nowlin. As the founder and president, I bring over 17 years of expertise in sourcing for talent, building winning teams of professionals, marketing, and workforce development. At CS Now Staffing, we're not just a staffing agency. We're your strategic partner in building a winning team of professionals for your business. My passion for community service extends to connecting entrepreneurs with local resources. Recognized by the Small Business Administration as the 2022 Nevada Family-Owned Business of the Year, we're not just changing the workforce landscape, we're defining it.
Hey folks, welcome back to Cybersecurity Awareness TV. I'm your host, Mac Jackson Jr. In this segment, we're talking about the FBI warnings regarding the healthcare industry. Is it under siege from cyber attacks? Our cybersecurity story in this segment continues with more attacks on our nation's healthcare industry. In Nebraska, a wave of cyber attacks on hospitals has gripped the FBI's attention and sparked Washington, D.C. lawmakers to finally take action, right? To get together to do something. That's just my little commentary. Pushing for legislators to safeguard the healthcare industry and patients' privacy. It's a wake-up call showing us how it is important that we stay on top of cybersecurity, especially in the healthcare industry, because, folks, it is a matter of life and death and protecting our patients. Experts in the field are excited and working hard and due diligently to make sure they have the best cybersecurity processes in place to protect us from these types of threats. To show you an example of this, here's a story I'd like to share with you, coming to us from KETV Newswatch 7.
A nationwide cyber attack targets healthcare technology, which most hospitals use in Nebraska. Good evening, I'm Julie Cornell.
I'm Rob McCartney. Lawmakers in Washington hope to pass a bill that'll better protect healthcare systems and patients.
KETV Newswatch 7 Sarah Feely joins us live with the hospitals affected now and the bill's potential impact.
Cybersecurity experts say attacks on healthcare systems have skyrocketed since the pandemic. The Nebraska Hospital Association says the frequency and sophistication has increased significantly, along with the impact. This latest attack targets a system that's taking pharmacies offline, but tech experts say the data that hackers could get has far-reaching impacts.
It's more like chess. So trying to figure out what the opponent is going to do and then trying to come up with a way to counter that.
Gary Sparks has spent nearly 40 years in cybersecurity. Now an instructor at Metro Community College, he spent the majority of his career with the U.S. Air Force as a chief of security for an intelligence squadron.
You have a lot of state-sponsored type of attackers, so they're well-funded, and so they're gonna try to do their best to go out and either bring embarrassment to an organization or actually do a breach, and in that way they can make money off of it.
Sparks says the nationwide attack on Change Healthcare is an example of that. The Nebraska Hospital Association saying the attack is affecting software used by a majority of Nebraska hospitals. All major Omaha hospitals confirm they use it, but are so far mostly unaffected. Sparks still worries about patient data.
If they can get a hold of patients' records where they're being treated for drugs or alcohol or something like that, they can use that to blackmail that patient, especially if that patient is wealthy. Or they'll try to extort the organization themselves.
Amid the rising attacks, a bipartisan group of U.S. senators introduced the Strengthening Cybersecurity and Healthcare Act.
Basically, what they're wanting to happen is the Inspector General of HHS to report to them on a regular basis on what's being done to protect patient data.
Sparks says there will likely be other requirements that come down for medical groups to be able to better protect patient information. But he says it all boils down to education, training, and awareness to protect the data from hackers in the first place, saying human error is usually to blame.
It'll help, but if an organization doesn't take it seriously, there's still always a possibility of something going wrong.
That bill is freshly introduced, so we'll keep tabs on that as it moves through Congress. As for Nebraska hospitals, the NHA says the feds are involved and investigating. Rob, back to you.
All right, Sarah, thanks.
Folks, these stories also focus on a significant incidents involving the Change Healthcare, right? That happened a couple of weeks ago here in our country. It underscores how critical it is for a healthcare industry to beefing up their cyber defenses. It is clear that technology becomes more intertwined with healthcare, and the need for robust cybersecurity has never been more critical than it is today. Keeping patients safe with their data and their technology is a very important process that we need to formulate with all of our cybersecurity efforts around the country. It is a matter of life and death, folks, and we must stay prepared and stay involved in it. Folks, the involvement with Senator Moore from Massachusetts and other legislators shows that there is definitely a need for our legislators to come up with more powerful cybersecurity practices that can protect patients as well as all of our infrastructure, from water to power, as well as healthcare and financials as well. The responsibility, folks, is definitely upon us. Definitely contact your legislators and find out what they are doing regarding cybersecurity awareness in your hometown. Like we've always said, folks, criminals always looking for vulnerabilities, ways to attack and exploit you. You must prepare yourself for this type of cyber attacks. Preparedness is the importance. Our best defense against a cyber attack, as we always say here in the show, is through the education of our employees and our workforce. To find out more information about that, you can contact my company at Vanderson Cyber Group, where we specialize in cybersecurity awareness education and training to protect your business with comprehensive plans and programs to show you what the hackers are doing and how to avoid being attacked. Find out more by going to my website at VandersonCyberGroup.com or my personal website, my speaking website at MacJacksonJR.com, MacJacksonJR.com. Folks, that's all we have for you this week. We appreciate you being with us and supporting us. Remember to like and subscribe to our shows on all of our shows here at WWDBTV. We definitely appreciate it. Until next week, folks, hashtag stay cyber woke. We'll see you then.